Welcome to the Intentional Athlete Podcast, where strength is more than a number on the bar. I'm your host, Ross Leppala, powerlifter, coach, and co-creator of the Intentional Athlete Experience. This show is for lifters, movers, and seekers who know that what happens in the gym echoes into your life. We explore how to train with purpose, live with clarity, and channel the pursuit of strength into something deeper, something transformative. Each episode, we'll dive into conversation, tools, and insights that help you align your mindset, body, and spirit. Because real growth doesn't just happen under the barbell. It happens in your mind, in your breath, and in your choices. This is about more than just PRs. This is about presence, power, and progress that lasts. Welcome to the journey, my friend. Welcome to the Intentional Athlete Podcast. Hey there, my friend. Welcome to the Intentional Athlete Podcast. Today, I'm really excited to bring to you a conversation with one of my very dear friends and mentors, Matt Garry. Matt Garry is a catalyst in my life. Let me share a little bit with you about what I mean by that. Matt was the very first powerlifting coach that I worked with back in 2012. It was when I was getting ready for USAPL Raw Nationals. So it was my first national championship that I got to compete in. Matt helped me prepare for that. Matt and Susie, his wife, coached me and handled me at the meet. I worked with Matt for a while thereafter and had a really great time with Matt. He taught me a lot of really cool things. I could easily see that this was going to be an important person in my life. And the big turning point was when he suggested to me the book With Winning in Mind, which we actually touch a little bit on in the podcast. But that was the very first start of me walking down the path of trying to better myself here. And anybody that followed along with Project Unchained and listened to that first episode knows where some of those demons were many years ago. That learning to cultivate some of those mental tools and mental toughness tools in training in sport was one of the catalysts for me to recognize that in the core of my being as a person. And I knew that I needed to do more. And that was one of the big catalysts in my life. And that transformed the entire landscape of my life in so many different ways. It was also an inspiration for me to see just how he operates as a person, as a man, as a human. And the thing that really struck me, and as I reflect on life in general, some of the most important and influential people in my life have been coaches. And that's an inspiration for me in my coaching. I take that role very seriously. I take that role. Anybody that has worked with me knows that I take things seriously more than just the sets and reps. I want to be able to support the person, not just the lifter. If they get progress, yeah, great. That's the big thing that we're after. But I want that work that they're doing in the gym to elevate every aspect of their life, just like what we're talking about here with the Intentional Athlete Podcast. This work, this training, this pursuit of strength ought to elevate every single corner of your life. And it does that when you train with intention. That's why we're here. That's why I got Matt here today, a catalyst in my life and in a lot of people's lives, not just mine. I know Matt has that influence on many people that he crossed paths with. So let's get into it. Let's chat with Matt Garry. Matt, my friend, how you doing today?
Outstanding.
Excellent. Feeling all good. You just got back you had your back-to-back travel from PA Masters equipped or age division nationals and then open worlds and jet set.
Yeah, man. Yeah, no rest for the weary, right? From Reno back to Bozeman, Montana, and then from Bozeman to Germany, to Chemnitz.
Right.
So it's been a whirlwind.
Yeah. Yeah, but definitely. Doing the thing you love. Everybody, maybe not everybody, but most people that know you for your outstanding game day coaching and handling, and that's one of your big focal points in the sport of powerlifting. And I know that you talk a lot about that in a lot of different places. And well, I don't want to use that conversation or use this space for that continued conversation. You've talked about that enough. I want to talk about things a little bit differently and more about Matt. Why don't we Just in case anybody doesn't know who you are, maybe a little introduction as to who Matt is, what do you do, and a little background.
Yeah, so I'm Matt Garry. I'm Ross Leppala's friend, extended family, and just honored to be here. So I appreciate you having me.
Yeah.
I guess from in the powerlifting context, because I know that's obviously going to be a large chunk of what we talk about is how all of this relates to powerlifting and to life and to meaning and intention. I've been involved in the sport of powerlifting now for about 30 years. So. Uh, when I started, it was as a competitor. And then I think that kind of morphed into becoming a referee. And then, of course, coaching. And I think, and I've served in capacities of other forms of servitude, right? I mean, I've run meets, I've been a meet director, I've been a spotter loader, I've been a drug testing officer, you name it in the sport of powerlifting, and I've probably done it. And none of that is to say that to pat myself on the back. It's just to say that I've kind of dipped into every corner and every pocket of the sport that you possibly can.
Yeah.
And clearly, I think I'm most known for the game day coaching aspect of it all. Being a national team coach, and then of course just very very passionate, like you said, about working with athletes one on one in that game day competition setting.
Hmm.
So been doing that for quite a long time. Most recently and currently, I am the um, British Powerlifting, which is the GB team head coach for their Classic Open team, and just got back from Worlds and soon to head to China for the World Games.
Yeah. Exciting. That'll be another big trip. Have you been to China before for powerlifting
I had,
or in general?
yeah, well, yeah, yeah, in general, yeah. So in 2009, I was the head coach of the men's equipped team at the World Games. That's where Mike Tuchscherer
Oh yeah.
won. He was the
Yeah.
first American male
Not
to
sure who
win
that guy
gold.
is.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. So that was the World Games in Taiwan, and in order to get to Taiwan, we had to travel through China. So we went to China on the front end and back end of the trip. So, but this will be a very different part of China. I was in Beijing before, and this is going to be more mainland China, up in Chengdu.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
looking forward to the opportunity.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Right. So you got your start in powerlifting, lifting weights, but I suspect that you didn't start lifting weights because you wanted to power lift. I suspect that there is a different the reason to the starting of your pursuit of strength.
Yeah, I think the first time I probably ever touched a barbell or a dumbbell was just lifting, being exposed to it a little bit in kind of grade school and high school because we had weights in our gymnasium at school, and the notion was is do a little bit of that for football, to
Yeah.
try to get bigger and stronger for football. And I think what that's a clearly a common theme, I guess, to go against young adolescent males,
Yeah.
right? Is who doesn't want to be kind of bigger and stronger,
Yeah.
right? Whether it be you identify with cartoon characters or whether you identify with athletes or whatever, it's who doesn't want to, be a bigger, stronger version of themselves. And so that was kind of my first exposure to it. Yeah, and the powerlifting kind of came around later.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think that's an important distinguishing factor that I like to, point out because a lot of people think about powerlifting as the thing they do, and I kind of tend to like to think about uh, powerlifting as just something that I've stumbled across and happens to align with the way that I like to lift weights.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. The objectivity of it is one of the things that attracts me to it the most.
Oh yeah.
Your powerlifting is real with you. There are objective metrics that can be measured at any point in time along your journey, and so it's nice to know that I'm either getting better, I'm standing still, stagnating, or I'm regressing. And so, and I think all three of those are clearly possible at all different times throughout your journey. In the beginning, it's mostly progress, because all of us have that high ceiling, if you will, that aptitude to get better. And it's not until, things happen in the sport or life stressors or these things come into play that you then can experienced some stagnation, some challenges, adversity, and at some points in time the regression.
Yeah.
But it doesn't lie to you, and I appreciate that hard truth. It's one of the things that attracts me to it is the struggle and the truth
Yeah.
that it kind of slaps you in the face.
Right. Right. So you like facing that figurative slap in the face.
I
What do you think it is
I
that
do,
you like facing that? Like, what is the motivating or discipline driving factor to push through
yeah,
when it's doing that?
I, I really like this might sound cliche, but it's true. I really like the perpetual pursuit of mastery and getting better. And the fact that I can, no matter how hard I try, you never quite get there. You never fully achieve that technical mastery in this particular sport. And I think that's true in probably a lot of pursuits.
Yeah.
But this one in particular is that we can always, there's this constant refinement that is taking place, this constant sharpening of the sword or whatever analogy you want to use,
Yeah.
and the sword is never quite sharp enough, and so you can make qualitative improvements. Obviously quantitative obviously is the big one,
Hmm.
am I adding more load to the bar, am I doing another repetition, am I doing said volume in a shorter amount of time. There's all of these objective metrics, and so it's that perpetual pursuit, and it's just the struggle. I enjoy the struggle that lies within that, and the pain that it takes to go through that process. It's this perpetual challenge, and I like kind of facing that adversity.
Right. What would you define as technical mastery? Like, if you're pursuing this thing and your pursuit is technical mastery, what how do you define technical mastery? I think there might be like some people might look at that differently. So I think defining that a little bit might be beneficial.
Yeah, for me, when I think of technical mastery, I think of a comprehensive understanding and ability to perform your task or your skill in almost a flow state moment where you don't have to think about it,
Mm,
where you can move, where you can operate, when you can do the thing that you're trying to do so skillfully, so completely, so thoroughly that you don't necessarily have to focus on every aspect of it. It just happens.
yeah. Yeah.
So that's to me is what it means. And look, I think technical mastery might look different for different people, but that's I think how it looks and feels for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that definition though. I like that idea because I mean, we do have slightly different ideas of it. But I
Mhm.
like the idea of it. And for me, that reminds me of like the ability to just drop into an athletic flow state where you're operating purely of action from the subconscious mind. And
Mhm.
the thing that I like about that in particular is like that means that you've done a really good job using your conscious mind to create the subconscious mind. And from this lens of intentionality, like when you do that on purpose, you create a really powerful subconscious. And that's the
Mhm.
critical part is doing it on purpose. If you're not doing it on purpose, well, you might allow some programming errors to get developed into that subconscious, and that's going to show up in the display of your actions.
Mhm. For sure.
Yeah. So intentionality plug number one, like doing things on purpose so that your subconscious display is powerful.
Yeah, there's got to be a reason behind what you're doing, right? That's why we don't go into the gym and just wing it. You have a plan, you have an objective, whether it be for the training session, for the week, for the block, for the competition, what have you. There's a plan, like you said. There's an intentionality. There's a deliberate nature of you going in to accomplish X objective for the day, and you may not always achieve that, but at least you went in there with the thought of this is what I'm trying to acquire or what I'm trying to gain by doing today's session.
Yeah. So
And
then,
there's a beauty in that.
Yeah. Would you then also include the like technical mastery aspect is the ability to flow and adapt with the change in conditions? Like if your plan is to go into the session and squat X amount of pounds and you go get into that session and your body's like, I got a different plan for you today, buddy. Like, isn't that part of it? Is the ability to adapt the plan to meet the change of conditions?
Yeah, for sure. I think being able to adapt in the moment is a surefire sign of I don't know, usually a surefire sign of a veteran athlete, of someone with some experience who's been doing it for quite some time. And they realize that, for whatever reason, they have to pivot that day. They have to adapt to, like you said, the surroundings, the condition, the way that their body's feeling. And that all comes with the understanding that it's not necessarily a net loss, that it can actually be a gain. It's an opportunity.
Yeah.
It opens the door, you know, to learn something new about yourself. I mean, you get oftentimes thrown a situation that is less than optimal, and you're like, well, this sucks. But then by the same token, it's an opportunity for me to problem solve and to troubleshoot and find a workaround. And then oftentimes if you succeed in that workaround, there's that triumph. You know what I mean? There's that feeling of holy crap, I was able to navigate that and come out better for it on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah. And you come out better for it on the other side with more skill set and more knowledge.
That's right. And all of that pours back into what you said about being a technical master, right? It's I don't even know how to phrase it, but it's almost like it just, a lot of video games, you have a player rating or a score or something. It's kind of
Yeah.
like it just pours more points back into your player rating.
Yeah.
It just improves your score. It makes your value as an athlete even better and higher.
Right. Yeah. So how do you think somebody goes about developing that skill? Thinking about like a young power lifter going into the gym and they have that plan to squat X amount of pounds. And I think it's pretty commonplace that the young lifter ignores all the warning signs and loads the bar up anyway and goes after it and turns what could have been a I guess positive learning experience, a productive learning experience into a shitty session that then leads to shitty feelings and unworthy feelings and I'm a bad lifter and all these other hardships that now also have to be overcome in addition
Mhm.
to the other thing that could have been easier. And I feel like a lot of times we run into that wall and we beat our head against that same wall a whole bunch of times. How do you think people can learn those skills without having to hit their head on that wall so many times?
I think all of us at some point in time in our journey have been so outcome focused, right? And I think you know where I'm going to go with this. It goes back to one of my favorite texts that I introduced you to and that I recommend to a lot of people, and it's called "With Winning in Mind" by
Yep.
Lanny Basham, and it talks about his mental management system that he developed when you break down a skill to basically create process orientation, create a habit, a ritual, a systematic approach to doing a movement, a skill, whatever your activity requires, and being focused on mastering that, making it concise enough that it's not so extensive and laborious that it's got 25 steps, you know. Um, so making it concise, making it repeatable, and then refining that over time. So to your point, when you go into the gym and you have a plan, I think if you can focus on mastering that process, becoming more ritualistic, you know, again, this process orientation rather than outcome driven, I think that can lead you to technical mastery sooner. But that all comes with the understanding, to your point, the training just, throws you a curve from time to time. And I think going in and instead of ramming your head against the wall, I have to squat, bench, deadlift X amount, you know, um, in every session, or in that particular session, rather than I I guess what I'm getting at is it comes with time in terms of being able to listen to your body and understand what is truly happening in the moment, and understanding that not every day is going to be a great day, and that's not a defeatist or a negative mindset. It just all comes with the understanding that your body, as this living, breathing organism, is rarely in this homeostatic state, right?
Yeah.
And so, and the environment around you is rarely ever in this homeostatic state. So the environment surrounding us is forever changing. I mean, obviously on competition day, the venue is rarely the same. The circumstances are rarely the same. The judges can be different. The weigh-in times can be different. All of these different variables can be different. And so I think all of that just comes with experience. And I think the more that you do that, the more that you train, the more that you find yourself in these situations, um, the more experienced you will become and the better you will become at the skill of understanding your environment and understanding when you have to make a change, as opposed to being so rigid, so inflexible, so dogmatic, whatever term you want to use, that you're just like, nope, this is what the plan said for today, and I'm going to beat my head into the wall, and then ultimately your body can break.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and that's what we all want to avoid.
Right. What do you think keeps people from being able to make that shift?
What keeps people from being able to make that shift? Um, I think nowadays social media is a big one. I think people are chasing credibility and clout on social media rather than, to your point, focusing on intention and deriving meaning from what they're doing,
Yeah.
and adding at its core, right? Regardless of what activity you do, whether it's gardening, powerlifting, skydiving, you name it, it should add value to your life, right?
Yeah.
And so if it's not, rather than the pursuit of this number or this title or this record, if you're pursue aggressively chase meaning, and that in and of itself is to me is the point of being intentional. That is
Yeah.
intentionality, right? That is being deliberate,
Yeah.
is aggressively chasing meaning. And when you go after meaning, then all of the other fruits of that labor will come to pass,
Yeah.
which is happiness, contentment, satisfaction, all of these just robust positives,
Yeah.
you know,
Absolutely.
come to you, as opposed to, oh, well, I'm chasing this 250 kilo squat. Well, what if you don't get there? What if you get sidetracked? Then is your whole, then have you lost all of the meaning? No. You know what I mean? I mean, some people will have lost all of the meaning, but for you and I think we chase different things. And so we're able to enjoy the process and the journey much, much more. It enriches our lives because of that.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Anybody that tunes in and listens to me regularly would know that the way I frame that, the language I use is like it's the chasing of the external validation. And the external validation is fleeting, it's unsustainable, it is temporary. You can't take it with you. Whereas the internal validation, when you have that meaning, you have that purpose, you get to bring that with you everywhere you go. And that is with you, it's embodied in you. It's not dependent on the outcome. And I think, in the sport of powerlifting, like you mentioned, it's nice because we have that objectivity. We can objectively measure whether the things we're doing are propelling us forward, stagnating, or digressing. And I think one of the keys is to realize that outcome isn't something that we ought to take personally. It's information. And if you lack the meaning, you will take the information personally because that's how you're deriving your meaning. And you're gonna have a hard fucking time. Period.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, I think you put it best because I've heard you speak on it before. It's kind of like when when you won last year in South Africa, right, in 2024, and you became a Masters World Champion. That's the best in the entire world at this activity. And it's like, I know you've been pursuing that, but I think with, if I know you well enough, you look, I mean, who doesn't get involved in powerlifting? I think that has the aptitude that you've had, right? That doesn't want to achieve those things. But it's like you said, when you woke up the next morning, were you any different? Was your life appreciably better?
Right.
Because it's not like you came into millions of dollars or you signed some huge sports, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like you signed some huge sports contract. You're still, you're still Ross. And yet you're able to sit there with the contentment of, hey, that's pretty freaking cool. I won an IPF world championship and that's fun. But to your point, it's like you were looking to what's next. But by the same token, I think along the way you were able to sit back and kind of kick your feet up and be like, man, that was a hell of a journey. That was a hell of a ride. Look at all these amazing people that I've met. Look at the setbacks that I endured and what I learned from those setbacks. Look at the PBs that I hit en route to that,
Yeah.
achieving that goal. And it's just I know a lot of that sounds like cliche, but I think it's true, man.
Oh, for
It's
sure.
just yeah. I mean, I think that the journey of getting there for you was I imagine a lot more fun and meaningful than actually the medal,
Oh, yeah.
the title, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great. The outcome, it's fun. Anybody that pursues sport and competition, whether it be powerlifting or otherwise, yeah, you want to win. You want to do as well as you can possibly do, which, you hope that's well enough to win.
Yep.
And at the same time, if that is what you derive your value from, you're going to have a bad time. At some point
That's right.
along the way, you're going to have a really bad time, even if you're winning.
Yeah.
Even if you're winning at the highest level possible. If that's what
Yeah.
drives you, you're going to have a bad time. It's going to trip you up. There needs to be
Yeah.
other things for it, you know?
Yeah, and there has to be other things, right? Because if all you're doing is chasing that validation from the medal, from the title, from the record, and you look, there's a possibility, like you said, we all want to do those things, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to win. There's nothing wrong with wanting to compete and be competitive. But there's always a possibility because there are so many variables outside of your control, things that you cannot control,
Yeah.
that you may never achieve that thing. And if you didn't enjoy the journey and the process and the people and the milestones and the setbacks and the adversity and the learning that takes place on that journey, then it's like, man, I really think you've lost. I really do.
Yeah.
There's so much to be gained. There's so much value that can be added to your life, even if you don't achieve that pinnacle metric that you're going after, as long as you've chased intention and meaning and enjoyed those things along the way.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So
No, I agree. And I think when you get to that point, you cultivate those qualities. When you do face adversity, you don't quit.
yeah,
And like you've faced some very significant adversity along the way in your pursuit of strength in your powerlifting career as a lifter.
yep.
What year was that? A couple years ago when the hip and knee thing happened?
Yes. So I guess, yeah. So I mean, I've got a pretty extensive injury list, but I think what you're referring to. So I've had two really significant injuries. One of which was I guess we would qualify or as a catastrophic injury. That was in 2015.
Right.
I was competing in New York, and I was on this journey. And again, this was chasing a metric, and this was a really pivotal time in my powerlifting career because of what this injury then created in me, I guess, or what it taught me and the lessons that I learned after the injury. But anyway, I was chasing a 500-pound beltless squat. That was the goal. Um, and I was having a great ride there, a great run for a few years where I was consistently getting better at squatting and I was hitting, either a 2.5 or a 5 kilo PB almost every time I competed. And I was inching closer, inching closer. And all the stars seemed to align for this, time when I was going to finally squat 227 and a half kilos, which is meaningless to a lot of the foreign listeners because, 227.5, what do they care about that? Well, to Americans, it's 501 pounds. So it was a big deal for me to do that without a belt on.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I was chasing. And anyway, went into this competition and I had some really significant knee tendonitis, which had become tendinopathy. And it's one of those things where I had gotten treatment on it but didn't take the amount of rest and the amount of time off that I should have. Looking back, it's the expression. I can see so clearly now that the rain is gone.
Yeah.
Because when you're standing in the middle of the storm and there's this aggressive, relentless pursuit of this one thing. Like, hey, I just need to squat 500, and that's going to validate everything that I've been working toward. And so I get to the competition and I hit my first two attempts, smoked them. They felt great. And then, of course, with the third one, we put 501 on the bar, 227.5. And I sat into the hole and all hell broke loose. And so basically what happened was I had a bilateral, that's both knees, quad tendon rupture. I tore both those ACLs. I tore my MCL on my right knee, and then I broke my right ankle because if you can imagine your knees buckling, landing on your knees and folding over backwards. And so my right ankle kind of got tucked up under me and my right ankle broke. So, needless to say, this was a very gruesome and catastrophic injury. It's kind of these injuries that you've seen online and on YouTube where you just cringe and you see it and you can kind of hear the snapping and you turn away from it. And so it was horrible, and of course I was rushed to a hospital in Brooklyn, New York, where I had surgery the next day and spent about a year in PT, trying to come back from that. And so, yeah, that's been the most significant injury for me, was that quad tendon rupture. And so, never did do the 500 beltless squat. I got to 490, which was 222.5. But all the signs in my training, every measurable data point said, oh yeah, 227.5 is going to be there on game day. And honestly, I think it was just that me not being mindful, not listening to my body, not taking the time off, and this chronic tendonitis, which turned into tendinopathy. Honestly, I think it was kind of like a timing belt on a car situation where I don't know that it mattered that it was 500 pounds. You could have probably reloaded my second attempt, and I think the same thing would have happened.
Got you.
But anyway, that catastrophic injury happened. I was in the hospital. I was in PT for a year. And that was a really, really pivotal moment in my journey because of the lessons that it taught me, and then working my way back from that injury.
Yeah. What lessons did it teach you?
Well, I think it's funny because when it happened, I was laying there on the platform, and your body goes into shock when you have an injury like that. The immediate thing is shock. And I can remember people telling me after the fact that one of the things that I was doing when I was laying there in shock, waiting for the ambulance to arrive and the EMTs, as I had this, I kept verbalizing and saying out loud, 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, because I was already rationalizing in my mind what had happened. And the immediate thing that my brain went to was, I want to come back and be able to chase that 500 again. I want to be able to come back and do the thing that was just taken away from me, right? Which is squatting in competition. And so, but what the journey taught me was, once you realize that there's going to be an extensive amount of surgery, an extensive amount of healing time required, and time away from the activity that you love so much, that's really a low blow, man. That's like a kick in your groin.
Yeah.
And I mean, it can be a really, really crippling thing. And so it's okay in the moment when something like that happens. And after you have surgery in the coming days, to go through all the scenarios and all the things in your mind, and there's this outpouring of emotion. And I think all of that is healthy. You can get angry, you can get sad, you can throw up the questions, why me? You can question God if you're religious or faithful. You can have all these conversations. What could I have done to avoid this? And you get pissed off at yourself and so on and so forth. But then you have to make a decision and say, you know what? Today is the day that I'm waking up and all that is in my rear view. I'm going to stop questioning why did this happen? And now I'm gonna start healing and getting better. And so there's a shift that has to take place, or at least it had to take place for me. And that shift became on what can I do in this next moment to get better, to objectively take just a millimeter of a step forward. The most incremental progress, no matter how small, is still progress.
Yeah.
And so it seems like this insurmountable goal in front of you. Oh my God, I want to get back to squatting. And you realize, hell, man, I want to be able to walk without assistance. I want to be able to get, up and down off the toilet without having to hold on to the handrails, in a handicapped toilet. I want to be able to climb stairs. I want to be able to get in and out of a car. It's those ADL, as they call them, the activities of daily living.
Yeah.
That you then want back. And you know what? The pursuit of that 500 squat gets moved to the back burner real quickly.
Yeah.
You don't give a shit about that 500-pound squat anymore. You just want to become the human, you want to resume your activities of daily living that were stripped from you, that were taken from you, and that you want to regain that sense of independence. So for me, it became a shift of, my mantra then became win the moment. And that's what it was. It just became about winning this next moment. What can I do in this next PT session? What can I do in this next, part of me laying in this bed from a mental perspective? What can I get my hands on to read? What meditation can I go through? What prayer, what conversation can I have with somebody that's going to pour into my journey? It was just about winning the moment. And for me, that became very, very instrumental in working my way back, because then you're just stacking wins, right?
Yeah.
It's just you're stacking one win right after the other. And you can look back and you can be like, man, I had a lot of wins today. I had like 6 or 7 of these little tiny wins. And when you continue to do that, I mean, they seem so small in the moment, but it's just, it's that brick by brick analogy where you're just building back, hopefully better than you were before. Certainly better than I was before from a mental perspective.
Yeah, for sure.
You're, as you said, kind of building that resiliency. I've always, I think, kind of had a high tolerance for physical pain, but it's the mental battle that's harder than the physical one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's objective markers and metrics that you can achieve from a physical standpoint, where a surgeon or a PT can look at you and say, cool, you've done X, Y, and Z. That's good. Now you can take this next step and your body is healed. You're not going to snap your tendons again. You're ready to take that next step. But are you mentally ready to take that next step?
Yeah.
And so that's where stacking all of those wins and winning the moment really became a mantra for me, and it really helped.
Definitely. There's a couple of things to highlight and point out there, I think, for people, just to reinforce some of what you said. I think the first one is you have to wake up and come to a point in your day where you choose to move forward from it all. And that's healing, whether it be from a physical trauma or a mental trauma, whatever it is. At some point you have to make the choice that, hey, I'm going to move forward now. And so many people forget and fail to do that they don't take that step forward. They hold on to the past and thusly identify with their trauma and keep it with them. And all that is Groundhog's Day. And nobody can do it for you, but you have to make the choice to step forward, regardless of what it is, mental, physical, spiritual. It becomes a choice. And I think that's one of a big thing to point out. The other one that I thought was really interesting was the idea of your like finding those different things to focus on and finding wins, find little wins to celebrate along the way. When we have a bad training session, there's so many times we're like, oh no, I had a bad training session. Blah, blah, blah. Like find a win. You got to train today, right? And like there's that same thing, finding a win, no matter how small it is, to be able to carry you forward. Finding something to celebrate, finding something that you can go, hey, look, I did it. I did that thing, regardless of what the like objective outcome is. Because as you pointed out, it's the mental part that's the hardest. And part of that mental momentum is celebrating those little wins along the way, no matter how small they are. When we celebrate them, that is that mental momentum to carry us forward. And if we don't do that, that's when we're likely going to stagnate or regress.
Yeah, I think you made some really interesting points there. Kind of back to the point at which you make a choice. I think people, when something bad happens to them, to your point, be it physical, be a mental trauma, whatever situation it might be, um, I think in those moments we feel like we lose control at times, and we're succumbing
Mm.
to our environment, to the situation, to our surroundings. And when you intentionally, again, you and I love that word, intentionality and being deliberate, when you deliberately make a choice, that automatically seizes it's a power surge. It's like you're reclaiming that power, and that places me back in control of the situation. Now it's
Mm-hmm.
like I am matter of factly making a decision today to take this step, and now there's tremendous power in having that control. And I think, to your point, you said just being thankful. You and I talk about gratitude a lot, and gratitude is so vital. You
Definitely.
know, it's incredible, man. We are so blessed, and we live such a life of tremendous abundance, and I think we lose sight of that. To your point, in the context of a lot of our discussion, when you have a bad training day, it's like, hey, man, I still had the opportunity to train. I had the opportunity to go into a gym, whether it's the gym in your house, your basement, or a commercial gym or a powerlifting facility or whatever, and do something that I really enjoy, to use this equipment, to use this barbell. I got to, or even just walk outside and enjoy the sunshine. There's so much. I mean, gratitude is key, man. I mean, if you're an ingrate and you're not thankful, your life is going to be pretty freaking miserable, man. There's so much to be thankful for. I had an incident when I was after my injury. I was in New York for 5 days, and then I got transported down to Washington, D.C., where I was in a rehab center for 21 days. And I remember being in that rehab center, and my knees or my legs were locked in extension, and they had to be locked in extension. They're basically in braces for about 6 weeks for the quad tendons to heal. And so when you're walking, you kind of look like you're walking on stilts,
Mm-hmm.
because you're like the Tin Man,
Yeah.
and so you're walking with a walker, and it's very, very excruciating just to walk with a walker. So part of my PT every day was getting me out of bed and trying to do laps on my hallway. And soon after the surgery, all you can do is just take a few steps because it's so excruciating, the trauma to the leg from having the surgery. And then you build up to, oh, I can walk down the hallway, or I can, walk down 2 hallways, what have you. Anyway, all that is said, that in this rehabilitation center, there were people there for a variety of reasons. There was a burn unit, there was, victims of car crashes, or um, there were also people that had come back from serving in the armed forces in the military. And that really puts things in perspective for you, because I got to do physical therapy right next to some people who were trying to regain their ability to walk. And so it all kind of hit me one night when I was walking down the hall using my walker, and I'm sitting there in excruciating pain. and you're trying to not complain to yourself, and you're like, oh, this sucks and so forth. And I turned the corner, and there was this gentleman who was in a wheelchair who didn't have any legs, and I could tell that he was a war veteran because he had on some type of military shirt, and I think he had a tattoo on his arm of the unit that he served in. And he looked up at me and he's like, "Hey, how's it going, brother?" With this smile, you know what I mean? He's like,
Hmm.
"Keep up the good work." And I immediately had this moment where I broke down, and I just had a moment where I just became overcome with this emotion, and I started crying. And I'm thinking to myself, here's this dude that had his legs blown off in war, you know what I mean? And and he's looking at me, and I'm complaining because my quad tendons got torn. Like, who the hell do I think I am? Like, this dude would probably kill to be in my shoes. So to your point, there's always an opportunity for gratitude. And that's not to minimize what people are going through.
Right.
It's just to say that no matter how bad you have it, no matter how grim or how dire your circumstances are, no matter how much your training day sucked, there is always someone who has it a whole lot worse than you and who would literally kill to be in your shoes.
Yeah.
So when you can kind of frame it that way, it's like, man, life's not so bad. Shit, I'll take two torn quad tendons.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm hell yeah. Like, now I'm looking forward to working my way back and to stacking wins and triumphing and achieving these metrics and these markers along the journey. And yeah, it just kind of goes into that gratitude conversation
Yeah.
about just being thankful, and that helps so much with overcoming adversity and facing challenges.
Yeah. I can only imagine that experience with that gentleman was like a pivotal point in your recovery process, particularly from that mental aspect, right? Like it
Oh,
sounds like it really turned the corner for a gratitude perspective and embracing
it
what you had to do to get back.
100%, and it was really cool because the physical therapist that I work with, I was always upbeat and looking forward to going to therapy, and they're like, holy crap, like, this is really cool. Like, that makes them more energetic and makes them more lively, and they
Yeah.
they want to work hard for you and so forth. And so yeah, it's like, man, when you can frame it in that way, it just creates this positive healing environment. And not just healing, to your point, from a physical perspective, but healing mentally, and your soul goes through this healing. And I think there's a congruence there between mental, physical, spiritual healing that just, I mean, look, I can't prove it, but I'm sure there's some science behind it that would show that when
Oh
those
yeah.
things align, when those things align, your body as an organism is going to regenerate, restore, replenish more fully than if you have this negative, shitty attitude all the time. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Where you're just like, oh, life sucks and I can't catch a break and I'm a victim and why does this always happen? All these negative things. It's like, man, that's why you have a choice. You can wallow in all that self-pity and loathing, or you can choose gratitude. And let me tell you, gratitude is the better way to go, and it's not even close.
Yeah. If you wallow in shit, you'll be covered in shit. If you bathe yourself in gratitude, it'll wash the shit away
Amen.
for sure. I mean, and you see, there's all kinds of different studies out there that show that even with plants, when you talk positively to plants, they grow and thrive better. Like, I've had people ask me about that, but with my garden, like, how's your garden do so good? I talk to it. When I water the plants, I tell them. When I harvest, I talk to them and express my gratitude for them for nourishing myself and my family. And I,
Yep.
I don't do anything extra special in terms of like, oh, I mix this into that soil at this amount and that rate. And no, I
Right.
like I compost and I talk nicely to them, them
Yep.
being the plants. So yeah, that's huge. Have you, like, obviously you worked through that process, you got recovered, and
Mhm.
one of the other things that came to my mind that I think is neat. I remember when you were going through some of that, and I was talking with you, and I was asking you about how some of the recovery was going, and you're like, "Oh, it's good. I'm ready to endure any amount of pain I have to get back to where I was."
That's right.
Yeah. That always stands
Yeah.
out to me.
Yeah, like I said, and that's not me thumping my chest or patting myself on the back. I've always had a high tolerance for pain, and I was really, really blessed. And want to talk about gratitude, I was so thankful for the physical therapist that I had on this journey, and so I was able to go see my physical therapist. And when your legs are locked in extension like that for 6 weeks, and then they take the braces off. There is no like one weird trick or one magic elixir. The only way to effectively restore range of motion in the joint is by blunt force. You have to basically break up that scar tissue. And that process is excruciating because the therapist has to mobilize that joint through essentially just leaning on you and bending your knee when it doesn't want to be bent because there's all that scar tissue.
Yeah.
And so I had two successive follow-up surgeries, which were just arthroscopic cleanups, but you still have to go through the paces in the physical therapy. And my therapist was just so wonderful because, I told him, I said, look, man, I'm never going to tell you to take your foot off the gas unless I think you're going to break something with me. You know what I mean? We both have a job to do. It's my job to come in here and be diligent and do the things that I need to do to literally and figuratively take a step forward. And it's your job to facilitate that through your skill as a therapist and do the things that are going to help me. And so when there's that healthy relationship between the two of us, I just told him, I was like, bring the pain, man.
Yeah.
Let's go. Like, you know what I mean? Like I understand this is going to hurt, but it's got to be done. And so, there's kind of a beauty in that too, right? It's just, it's kind of a metaphor for life. It's almost like there's nothing, there's very few things in life worth having that you don't have to struggle for. There's not some pain involved with acquiring that thing,
Yeah.
you know? And so reacquiring the mobility, reacquiring the joint integrity, the stability required a lot of work and a lot of pain. And so when you come out the other side of that, you're like really thankful that you actually went through that. I mean, there's moments when it really sucks. I mean,
Yeah.
it really, really hurts. But yeah, it just makes you a tougher SOB, man.
When
So
when you were in the middle of some of that, what were you able to like look into the future and like see a walking mobile mat?
yeah, I think those are the things that you kind of, when you kind of, I know you're big on meditation. And so I think when I was meditating and doing some visualizing and praying and so forth, those were some of the images that I saw. It wasn't always, oh, here I am squatting, 500 pounds or getting close to 500 pounds. It's like, here I am walking normal, you know, without,
Yeah.
without a limp. And that sounds kind of silly, or here I am getting in and out of a car with no problem or what have
Right.
you. And all of those things are things that you take for granted until they're taken from you, and when
Yeah.
you can't do those things unassisted, it really sucks. And you want to regain that dependence. So yeah, so you're going through that and you're envisioning coming out the other side of it and regaining that stuff, which then becomes a metric or a box that you check en route to, oh, now I can put a barbell on my back again and
Yeah.
squat below parallel. You know what I mean? And then, oh, cool, I'm able to squat below parallel. Now I can add load. Now I can add repetitions,
Yeah.
etc. So,
Right.
yeah.
Well, I think that's the
Mhm.
thing to kind of highlight too in a moment like this is two critical things, in my opinion. Is one, like you're visualizing future mobile, capable, back to normalcy, Matt, able to move about the world, able to walk up the stairs again, able to move. So like you're seeing yourself in the future. You're seeing the outcome before it exists. It's not your reality in the moment, but you're seeing it, you're creating it, you're visualizing it before it happens. And you're in a state of gratitude, an elevated feeling. And that's a huge part of manifestation when you look into the quantum physics behind manifestation is visualizing the thing before it happens. It's not in the physical reality right now. It has to be manifested, paired with positive, uplifting emotions. And so like that's really critical and key in any of those moments. And in this particular lens as well, your ability to embrace that pain cave goes way the fuck up when you can see the positive outcome in the future, and you can express gratitude for that, and you can express gratitude for what you're enduring right now to get to that point in the future. All that ability to embrace the suck mentally, physically goes way up, to know that I'm going through this for a reason that's in the future.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. People, I think, are more likely to quit something if they know that there's literally and figuratively no opportunity for success on the other side. And again, we can define success differently, but I think you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's for maybe we frame it as a positive outcome on the other side.
Yeah.
But to your point, when you can visualize that, see it, crystallize it, manifest it in your mind, then it's like, okay, cool. I am willing to go through this and embrace it now because of what I'm going to be able to appreciate and enjoy on the other side of it later.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's more valuable because it doesn't come back immediately, right? I mean, it's like, God, if it's like anything else in life. It's like there's value in the struggle.
Yeah.
If you were just given, oh, here you go, Ross, here's a 700-pound squat, you only had to train a week for it. Like what? I don't know.
Right.
To me,
Right.
that kind of goes back to, our initial part of the conversation is that perpetual pursuit of technical mastery, which comes with great struggle, and so there's value and gratitude in the struggle. Like, holy crap, man, this is hard. Like, not everybody can do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whatever that thing is. Not everybody can go through physical therapy like that. Not everybody can go through learning a new language. I mean, whatever your quest is.
Yeah.
It's like,
yep.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure. So particularly through all of this, because I know there's a lot of different places we could take this, but I don't want to go too far in other directions. So I often, as you know, think about like training with intentionality as being like I'm not just pursuing strength for the sake of stronger muscles. There's more to this journey. And I hear that in your stories, like you embracing this and wanting to get back. Have you, let me back up. First question. Have you gotten to that point where you've achieved that 500-pound squat?
I've not, but I've gotten close. The closest that I squatted, so that's 227 and a half kilos. I think the most that I've squatted since the injury is probably about 215, 220.
Okay.
So not far away, but I think also, to be fair, and then I'll let you get into your other questions. I think there's been a shift. That was 10 years ago. That was in 2015. Now we're in 2025. My journey as a powerlifter has changed since then, and my focus has become more on the coach rather than the athlete.
Right.
That's not to say that I don't enjoy competing, because I really do. Competing is a lot of fun, but coaching to me adds a lot of more value to my life. And I think one of the reasons that it adds so much more value to my life is because I'm able to pour into other people's lives. And me, the athlete, Matt, the powerlifter, the competitive powerlifter, doesn't really afford me the opportunity to pour into other people's lives like coaching does.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So look, if it, Mike T talks about this all the time. Like, I don't think any of us knows when our last PB is going to be, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
You don't.
We don't know when that quote unquote expiration date is on our personal best.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a different time for all of us. And so who knows? Maybe that's in my rear view and I won't be able to physically achieve that. But it's certainly nothing. If it happens now, it'll happen organically and it'll just kind of come to me rather than me pursuing that thing.
Mm.
And I think there's beauty in that too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, so anyway.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. But you're still lifting. You're still training.
Oh, totally. Oh, yeah, for sure. 100%. Yeah, I'm still training like a powerlifter. Still, yeah, I mean, I competed 2 years ago, but still, yeah, still training 4 times a week. Yeah, I want to compete again soon. I mean, I just had another injury because I tore my biceps tendon. But I'm completely out of physical therapy. Today was my last therapy session.
Yay.
My bicep is, yeah, exactly. But my bicep is healed. I've got full range of motion. It feels fantastic. I've been given the green light to push. This happened in March. Here we are in June. I'm feeling great. And so, yeah, zero complaints about that. Just extremely thankful. But yeah, look, I will get back on that competitive powerlifting train here at some point.
Yeah.
But it's just that it's the coaching that has kind of taken the primary, what's the word? Mm, Primary value adder
Yeah.
for me
Yeah.
is coaching within powerlifting versus competing.
Yeah. For sure. For sure.
Yep.
But the main point of asking that question was
hmm
like, here you are in pursuit of this objective, this measurable objective goal. You're faced with adversity. You
hmm
go through a lot of adversity. 10 years later, you haven't yet achieved that same objective measurable outcome that you were after. There is some focus shift here and there, but you're still
hmm
lifting, you're still pursuing strength, you're still walking that path and that journey. What keeps you walking that path? Because like a lot of people, when they get injured, they may quit, they may change sport, they may change their pursuit entirely, but now you're still on that path. Why?
I think it's all of the rewards that I've reaped from that journey, from that adversity. All of that has added so much value to my life that for me, if I quit on that, if I stopped training, it would almost feel like I was betraying. I'm not sure how to phrase it, but betraying those who poured into my life during that journey and and the value that was added to my life, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Um, it it's that look. I really do enjoy lifting weights. I think a lot of us do.
Yeah.
It's fun, right? And for all of the things that we can say, oh, I like it that it increases my bone density, it adds muscle mass, it gives me these objective metrics to chase. It makes me a stronger person, and strength is always an asset. It's never a liability. It makes you more. It makes you tougher. Stronger people are literally and figuratively harder to kill.
Yeah.
We are more right. We are more resilient toward anything, toward an animal attack, a human attack, a car accident, you name it. Somebody who strength trains on a regular basis is just naturally more resilient and tougher than someone who doesn't. So I'm thankful for all of those healthy benefits and byproducts that it produces. Very thankful. But bigger for me is the meaning that it gives my life, and that perpetual journey of going after technical mastery and the potential to get better. And what I've learned is it makes me better in different aspects of my life, not just the physical, but oftentimes the mental. And so you're able to take those life lessons that you've experienced and that you've gained through that journey, and then I pour it back into my coaching practice, which then I believe adds value and meaning to other people's lives. And that's the beauty of it for me, really,
Yeah.
is and again, I'm only speaking for myself. I'm just saying that's why I like the coaching more than I do the actual competing and lifting, is because it enables me to pour back into other people's lives. Because to me, that's where my legacy is really going to be built, is the impact that I had on others. You know what I mean? I think that's what it means to leave a profound legacy behind, is what you meant to other people.
Yeah.
Those relationships.
Yeah.
So yeah.
100%. 100%.
Yep.
And like the reason why I frame some of that stuff and ask you some of those questions that I think is a a good little thing to tie up here is like you having those reasons why you're still on that path. Like that's the foundational element behind any pursuit of athletics that doesn't have burnout, right? Like here you are, suffered a catastrophic injury, and you're still going, right? You're not shook by the outcome, even when the outcome fucking sucks major ass. Like most 99.9% of powerlifters are never going to have to experience the hardships that you've experienced.
Right.
And they'll probably bitch a little bit more than you. But when you're grounded into that why and you have that meaning and purpose in your pursuit, the outcome doesn't rock you. The outcome just is what it is, and you keep going anyway because there's so much other value that gets added to you in your journey that it doesn't matter. And, you know, we see people come and go in the sport. We see people get burnt out. And look, that might be what that person needs. They might need to have a shift in their life because it's no longer aligned with them. But that's the reason why it's not aligned with them is they've probably lost touch with that why, or that why has changed. And the meaning behind it is shifted or lost touch with. And I think that's one of the biggest things to point out from a thing like this is that is intact for you. And it's not even about powerlifting or the sport of powerlifting is the other thing to highlight. Like powerlifting is a vehicle. If the sport of powerlifting went away today, you would find another way to continue to do exactly what you're doing in terms of the qualities and characteristics and values of what is being connected with and expressed through your coaching, through your pursuit of strength, through your lifting.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also, you know, I think there's beauty in kind of having this glass half full mentality. Like we talked about, gratitude is as bad as that injury, and just more recently, me tearing my distal bicep tendon and so forth. As bad as those things suck, they're also opportunities, and they're opportunities for me. It's a learning opportunity, and also an opportunity to then come back and achieve en route to, you know, to continue to achieve while coming back. And so, yeah, you're going to get knocked down in the dirt sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's an opportunity to say, you know what? I am strong enough. I am good enough to get back up, get back on my feet, and dust myself off, and now start to take steps forward. And that's pretty cool. And that's where you start to learn more about yourself is through that. You know what I mean? It's like, man, if you're cruising down the highway all the time and life's easy and there's no potholes or speed bumps or whatever, it's like, you know, it's like, how much do you really learn from that? I mean, yeah, it's nice to have those moments in your life where you're just, you know, on cruise control and you're making hay when the sun's shining and all that good stuff. But it's like, man, it's like, you know, without those obstacles and those hurdles, you know, there's much more growth in the and I know that's cliche too, but there's so much growth in the adversity and the setbacks.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
And so I'm just thankful for them. It's not like I go to bed at night and pray and say, "Oh God, you know, crush me tomorrow." You know what I mean? give me something that's going to set me back. No, that's not what you ask for. But you are, you know, you have to, you know, once you come to grip with those moments, you have to be thankful for those moments because it's, you know, we are a product not only of our environment, you know, but we're a product of the things that happen to us and then our ability to respond favorably, you know.
Yeah.
We can't control what happens to us, but we can certainly control the way in which we respond to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, and that's
Absolutely.
huge.
Absolutely. It's super huge. It's like the other way to continue to frame some of this, the way I look at training and intentional training is we're learning these skills to carry forward and apply in other areas and aspects of our life so that we can also show up there as stronger, better versions of ourselves. And you alluded to that. You talked about how some of that hardship helped you grow and be better in other areas and facets of your life? Like, if if you could if you could parse it down maybe to like one or two things, like what do you think going through that catastrophic injury and rehab process, what do you think that taught you to be a more skilled version of yourself outside of lifting weights, outside of powerlifting? Like, how has that allowed you to show up better?
I think one of the ways that it's enabled me, it's made me more empathetic when I'm now dealing with somebody else who might be going through something
Mm-hmm.
as well. You know what I mean? I think that's huge because now I can identify with people who are going through a physical trauma or perhaps a mental trauma because I've now experienced, a huge trauma as well. So it makes me more relatable as a coach. It also gives me like instant credibility, right? It's like, holy crap, he went through this, extraordinary difficult injury and rode back. So now he can speak with some credibility, you know. There's there's some verifiability built into that because I've been through it. Um, and I'm trying to think of one of the other ways, but I just kind of lost my train of thought there for a moment. But I think um, just the experience that comes with having gone through something like that makes me more relatable to others, and so I'm able to pour that back into my coaching practice. And I think that's huge.
So, unrelated to powerlifting at all, not even coaching. Let's say, how's it made you a better husband for Susie? Because you better be a better husband for my mom, the powerlifting mom.
Exactly. Susie's had some injuries and some setbacks as well as I think most high level powerlifters have also had. So I think it's, as I said, it's made me more empathetic toward her. It's also made me a better servant to her. And what I mean by that is she was obviously the person who, aside from me, she was the person most affected by my injury, right?
Yeah.
Because she lives with me.
Yeah.
so so what it's done is it's given, it's like, man, when someone is that gracious and that loving and that caring and thoughtful and all of those adjectives while you're going through this life-changing injury and your entire life is turned upside down, then it also gives me the opportunity. It's like, and now I want to pour back into her. You know what I mean? It's like I too want to extend some of that love, some of that care, some of that grace
Mhm.
when something happens to her. You know what I mean? Because it's like, man, she lifted me up and she built me up so much and helped me get back to health. So
Yeah.
now it's like I can be more empathetic and more loving when she has a setback.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, hey, how can look at all the wonderful things that she did for me. It's like, hey, how can I, hold her hand or walk by her side or support her? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And love her. So I think it's made me a better husband and a better partner in that way as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. And it's beautiful too. Like,
Yeah.
I forget where the heck I heard it, but I saw it and learned it at some point in time in the past. It essentially talking about how people, whether they're couples beforehand or it is the thing that brought them together to be a couple, but people who go through like a extreme difficult situation, like where it's almost a survivalistic type situation, their connection together afterwards is of such a deeper rooted level than anybody who hasn't gone through an experience like that together is. There's just a much greater deal of love and connection through that
Yeah.
adversity than there would have been otherwise. And so it makes
Yeah.
sense that it makes sense to me thinking back to when I consumed that this would be something that comes out of the other side of that, and as well, like thinking about it from how you saw Susie pouring into you and supporting you and caring for you, that you get to the other side of it and you get your capacity and capabilities back, that you're like, all right, now it's my turn.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, there's beauty in having that community and being able to experience a situation with someone else, right? I mean, there's certain things that we all walk through alone and that we need to deal with alone, but it's really, really helpful when someone, to your point, you can walk through the fire with someone else.
Yeah.
And that's why it makes the bond stronger, the connection stronger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So then it's like, okay, when they get thrown into the fire, you know what? My ass is jumping right in there with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm going to be right by your side, and I'm going to help support you in any way that I possibly can.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty cool how that works.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at the end of the day, we're community and social beings. There's
Yeah,
no getting away from that. We're
right.
powerlifting lens. Most people that say, "Oh, what do you love the most about powerlifting?" Community,
Yeah,
right? Well,
that's it.
this is part of it.
Right.
That's part of it.
Yeah, and it's the expression, right, that misery loves company. So it's kind of like when you're experiencing something that's horrible, right? It's like, man, there's comfort in having somebody by your side, or at least having someone that you know who's been through that, and then can then guide you through
Yeah.
it and say, hey, when you come up to this junction, you need to make a left because
Yeah.
I went through, don't go right, go left. I went through the exact same thing, and they can kind of guide you through that. It's like they become your GPS, just kind of navigating your way through, through a hard time.
Yeah. Most definitely. Most definitely.
Mhm.
I want to be mindful of your time, Matt, here. So let's wrap up with one more question to follow up
Okay.
on that idea.
Yep.
What would be your guiding advice and wisdom for somebody that might be listening when they're going through that shit? Like, what's the biggest, most important thing that helped you, that you think can help other people navigate the moment of adversity to get to the other side of that, and be the stronger, better versions of themselves afterwards, and find the gratitude for the adversity along the way?
So there's a couple of things. No matter what strife you're going through, whether it's a physical trauma, a mental trauma, whatever, um, is ex- I think there's an acceptance there's a moment of acceptance
Mm-hmm.
that you have to come to, where you're accepting, okay, I'm in this moment. This is what I'm confronted with. And no matter how horrible it is, I now at some point in time have to make a choice to pivot, a choice to put a stop to some of those negative emotions and make a choice to head off in another direction. So it's that combined with the fact that, like we talked about, no matter how bad it is the reality that there is somebody out there who's got it a lot worse than you, and there's a beauty in that. There's, I think, a comfort in that, because it's like, man, this does really suck, but man, there's a lot of people who are going through stuff a lot way worse than me,
Yeah.
and that leads to the gratitude piece of being thankful.
Yeah.
Wow, it's cool that I'm not going through that. Yeah, I'm going through this, and it kind of stinks, but at least I'm not going through that. It's the gratitude piece, and it's also tying in your why, right? We've been talking about that. Like, why are you doing this activity? Why are you pursuing this thing? And sometimes your new why, or your new place of focus, might be born out of that moment of adversity. And so, you know what I mean? So for me, the injuries that I've been through and so on and so forth have helped to shape me and mold me, and have been really instrumental in helping me be a better husband, a better coach, a better friend, a better family member. And so I know that's kind of a roundabout answer there, but we touched upon a few different things. But I think it's all of those things. And so um yeah, I mean, I don't know how to summarize it any better than that, but just intentionally choose gratitude, right?
Yeah.
We talk again, that's been one of our buzzwords this entire conversation is being deliberate, being intentional. And so when you can deliberately choose gratitude, that's a really good, strong bedrock foundational point to jump off from.
Yeah.
You know, your feet are going to be really securely planted on solid ground when you're thankful. And then it makes for more intentional decision making and better choices, I think.
I totally agree. And I think like the acceptance part is huge. Like all of that is really huge. And I totally agree with everything that you say wholeheartedly. And I just, in particular, like all of that stuff gets at the key components that allow us to move forward in any of those situations. Because if we're not accepting it and we're not having gratitude, then we're denying what is. And anytime you deny what is, regardless of what it is, you're going to have a bad time. And if we deny the gratitude for it, no matter how quote unquote bad it is, no matter how painful it is, when we deny the gratitude from it, we don't learn from it. We don't see the opportunity to learn and grow from it. And that which we do not learn and grow from is bound to repeat.
Right.
At least that's how my perspective on some of that.
Yeah. No, I agree. And like we talked about earlier, all of that creates an opportunity for you to then stack wins and stack positive things. And it builds into, kind of Mike's mantra with RTS is building momentum,
Yeah,
right? And positivity snowballs just like negativity does. You know what I mean? And so we're just trying to make a bigger snowball, man. You know what I mean? In terms of
absolutely.
positivity. Yep.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Matt, I thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you. I appreciate your wisdom and sharing everything with you. I thank you so much. I have all the love to you and Susie.
Well, that's a two-way flowing love stream, man. I think the world of you. I appreciate you. You are part of my chosen family. And so just I'm thankful for this moment and thankful for the podcast. And I hope that our conversation helps add value to other people's journeys as well.
Likewise. Thank you.